Hey everyone, thanks for joining. I'm going to give us just a couple more minutes here for participants to come in, and then we will get started at about 9:02. All right. Looks like we've got some people flowing in. I'll go ahead and share my screen and get started. All right, thank you everyone for joining today, our Sin7 core webinar. My name is Izzy. I'm with the solutions team here at Sin7. Going to be running us through just an overview of Sin7 today, and then through a general demo of the system. If you would like, I am going to pop open the Q&A on my end. So if you have any questions as we go through, I'll try to stop at the end of each module to answer those. And then if you have a specific industry that you're in, apparel, manufacturing, things like that. Feel free to throw that in the chat and I can make some relevant notes there as well if you'd like. So I'll keep an eye on that Q&A. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. So looking at our slide deck here, really the goal of Sin7 is to help us manage less, sell more, and connect everything. So if we're here, we're probably familiar with some of the traditional inventory management struggles, maybe dealing with things like Excel sheets. We might have complex Excel sheets that our team is managing. We may also have a custom system. We may have an older system that sort of looks like, Windows XP, kind of hard to navigate around, not really feeling modern. Some struggles that come with that, right? We need to maintain product inventory to grow. Sometimes things like Excel sheets don't allow that. Um, some of those inefficiencies, right? Manual overload, our team managing those Excel spreadsheets, possibly some error rates within there. If we're using like human input, it's possible our calculations or our notes are wrong there. Cash flow waste. So things like overstocking goods, understocking goods, and maybe losing sales. So inability to manage that inventory causing us to either lose sales or sort of waste money on that overstocked, underselling goods. Scale creating complexity. So we can usually manage on sheets or an older system for a certain period of time. Maybe we go viral. Maybe we hit a big sort of section of growth. Maybe our seasonality increases. So as we scale, we may find Excel is fine for now, but if we reach a certain amount of growth, it's going to become unmanageable. Leading to growth feeling impossible. Of course, if we're trying to manage those Excel sheets, that old system, it's almost like, oh, we've got this big sale that came through. Don't know if I'm going to be able to fulfill it. We should be looking forward to those things like big sales, knowing that our inventory is ready and that we've managed it well enough that we can make sure to fulfill those sales on time. So these are things that Sin7 is going to help with through connected inventory. So taking the different parts of your supply chain in your business, putting them all into one place, giving you better visibility over what stock do we have in what locations. How does this apply to accounting? What's our valuation at any point? Making sure all of those things stay level. So connecting in all those different portions of the supply chain, purchasing in from your suppliers, storing at different locations, 3PLs, contract manufacturers, your own locations, selling those goods, getting that revenue, getting that fulfillment done, getting paid, reporting on all of this information, which ideally is going to drive us to restock, start the whole cycle again. So some of the ways that we help with this end-to-end clarity. So because we're capturing all of these portions of the supply chain within one, you've got visibility into your products from the moment that they were purchased all the way through to when they were sold. Some good information on costing there as well that we keep track of. Integrating everywhere. So we've got a wide library of native integrations, common things like Shopify, QBO Zero, maybe some Zapiers, eBay WooCommerce, Magento. We've got quite a few of those in our library, so we can always take a look at your integration list, see how that fits in. We also have an open API. So if it's something that maybe isn't in our integration library already, we've got opportunities to connect there. We do have development resources that we can recommend as well if needed. Touchless issue resolution. So we do have things like alerts in the system as all of our connections are running. Ideally, a lot of these things are automated. If errors are popping up, if you need help with things, we'll send you out those emails, and we've got a great support team that can help you to resolve those as well. All of this leading to sales efficiency. We've now got enough goods to fulfill our sales. We maybe have some predictive analytics that are helping us keep on track of stock. So now we can make sure when sales come through, we can sell our goods so we're not behind due to things like understocking. One of the great modules that we have that I'll show today as well is Foresight AI. So this is our AI demand planning platform. I know AI is everyone's favorite acronym these days, hearing about it everywhere. We've incorporated this into our demand planning. Our system will analyze your sales, your sell through. We've got just over 100 algorithms that we're using to parse through that data. Based on that, we give you a forecast. We then make purchasing, transfer, or production recommendations. So if you don't want to have your purchasing team or your procurement team going through pulling reports, trying to crunch the numbers on what our forecast should be, our system can do it for you very well. We do have a whole team that's dedicated to that forecasting, making sure that's maintained and accurate. All right, on to the demo. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the system here. I'm going to pop into Sin 7. I do have a cat walking around my desk, so if you see my camera shaking, I'll try to keep him out of view as much as possible. Looking at Sin 7 here, first thing we see when we log in is a nice overview dashboard, some quick links to different parts of the system. As we scroll down, some information on different areas like purchase, sale, and products. If I like one of these more than the other, I can drag it to the top. We can do some rearranging here. We are a user-based system. So as I mentioned, these things like custom dashboards, permissions, maybe report setups, they are all per user, and everyone only gets the access that they need to the specific modules here. To give us a agenda for the demo today, I usually like to start in the inventory section, take a look at products availability, what that looks like. Then from there, talk through the product life cycle. What does purchasing, production, and sale look like? And then finish it out with some reporting. So heading over into that inventory section, into our products, we do store all SKUs, raw materials, finished goods, non-inventory items, assets, essentially anything that you'd like to track, purchase, or sell can be listed here. Couple ways to get those in. We do have a CSV import option, which is great to do that in bulk. It also works for updates in the future. For thinking about updating things like pricing or costing, do it on all in one fell swoop. We also do have options for downloading from e-commerce. So if you've got a Shopify store, a WooCommerce store, you can just bring in the product data from there. Images, SKUs, barcodes, all of that good information. Quite a bit that we track here per product. So some of those things that we mentioned, like SKU, product name, barcode, pretty standard when it comes to IMS. Additional things like tags and categories, if we're thinking about reporting. We've got tons of reports in the system. If we want to be able to get granular there, those come in handy. Options for bill of materials as well. So if we're dealing with anything like kitting and bundling, maybe we sell 2 or 3 packs. We might also sell variety packs. Those could be pre-assembled bundles. They can also be virtual bundles we only assemble on fulfillment. We also have like manufacturing bill of materials. So if it's kind of beyond bundles, we're doing mixtures. Maybe we have multiple steps within that production, ways we can account for that. I'm going to touch on our different production options once we get past purchasing. Costing methods here, quite a few options. First in, first out tends to be the most common. Options for serial and batch tracking. We've got great traceability reports in the system. So whether we're using FIFO or FIFO, first expiration, first out, if we're doing things like tracking batch and serial numbers, type in that number into a report, we can see everywhere it's been. Who is it purchased from, sold to, used in for manufacturing. So quite a bit of traceability options there. I always like to note for serial numbers, we do offer warranties and RMAs as needed. A couple other notes here before we move on. We do track both sides of pricing. So who are all of our suppliers, all of their costs to make sure those are accurate when we generate purchases for you or when your team enters those. On the flip side, we've got sale price tiers. So maybe retail, wholesale, VIP. These can be assigned to customers in the system. So if we're creating sales through Sin 7, if you have any manual sales needs, you get phone or email orders, maybe B2B stuff, these price tiers can be utilized. We do have a B2B portal as well. So if we're thinking about using these, assigning them to our wholesale customers can sign into that portal, view our product lists, and then do some ordering. Go ahead and sign in quickly so we can see what that looks like. Super handy here. Sales reps can order on behalf of customers as well if we'd like, but from here we can see it's kind of like an e-commerce platform, just a matter of viewing our catalog, doing some ordering, and then we are seeing that specific price tier for your customer as well. So some great options there for our own hosted B2B portal is needed. Beyond that, we can see there are quite a bit of options here when it comes to products, things like images and attachments, logs to see who has made changes. From here, working off of that SKU list, we'll head over into our availability screen. I've got to toss my cat, I apologize. Looking at availability, we're now taking that SKU list and we are building upon some warehouse locations. So as many locations as you need, we can store. We've also got bins within those locations if you'd like to track pick zones, different aisles, things like that. And then of course, batch numbers, expiration dates will be listed here as well. A couple different stock values that we have. Let me pull up some of my good availability here. We'll track what's on hand. So what is physically within our warehouses. If I walked out, I could view it. That does apply to like 3PLs, contract manufacturers as well. We then keep track of, oh, I'm sorry, let me pull my availability. We then keep track of our allocated number. So if we look over into this column, anywhere where those goods have been reserved will be considered allocated. Let me find a good one here. There we go. So if we click on that number, we can see where those goods have been reserved. It looks like I've got quite a few sales for this product. Things like manufacturing and transfers can be considered there as well. And then we use those two numbers to do some math, give us our availability. Find my product I was just at. There we go. So like for this guy here, I've got 1,000 on hand in my warehouse. I've got 402 that have been reserved or allocated. If I want to see where I can click on that number, does some math for us, gives us that availability calculation. We would then push that up to your e-commerce sites if necessary. This is also what usually our sales team references to see, like our open to sell number, it's commonly referred to as well. Since we do keep track of any of your purchase or transfer orders, we'll see what's on order. Same thing with in transit. If we're transferring goods back and forth between warehouses, we can see your in transit number. Those apply the same as the allocated. If I click on those, I can see exactly where they're in transit or on order. If I pull some of those numbers up, so you can see those give us quick links into the transactions there. Some next delivery dates, optional as well. So good overview for product availability here. We can see by location, we can see any of our batch numbers if you would like. And then of course we have that availability calculation, which is going to be sent up to our e-commerce sites. Before I head over to purchasing, I'm just going to double check my Q&A here, see if we have any questions on products before we move forward. Can custom fields be created to hold information? We do have up to 10 custom fields per product, and they can be different per product. Maybe you have a certain set of custom fields for apparel, maybe a certain set for jewelry, so on and so forth. Up to 10 of those, and those can be pulled into things like documents if you want that information on your pick slips or invoices. Also can be pulled into reporting. Some of the common ones there, mentioning apparel again, we might want the season of this. So we can see for summer 24, what's sold versus maybe some of our past seasons, things like that. Good question there, Hayden. Thank you. All right, so moving over now into our product life cycle, going to head into purchasing, taking a look here. So of course, bringing our products in, this is purchasing from our suppliers or vendors. We do store all of those suppliers in the system. So you've got their history, you've got all their details available to you. Couple ways these can be created. I can import this via CSV. If I've got a ton of information, I just want to throw it in. I can hit this plus button, fill out the form we're about to take a look at. Who's my supplier? What am I ordering? The way that I prefer to do this is to have the system generate these purchase orders for us. Couple ways we can do that. We do have a material requirements planner. This is what I like to call our human brain way of procuring. I get to go into that MRP and say, what's my planning period? What am I looking at? Sales, production, transfers. What am I procuring up to? A forecast, a minimum value? Am I looking at BOM components? So a lot of human input that can be put in there to generate these purchases. Otherwise, that Foresight AI that I mentioned during our slide deck is quite a bit more simple. Since we generate the forecast for you, we generate the suggestions, all we have to do here is tell the system, what period am I looking at? What am I trying to do, purchase, transfer, or produce? Some options to define by supplier or destination if you'd like. From there, it simply generates our suggestions, tells us what our past sales are, when we need to reorder those things, what unit of measure, MOQs that we might need to follow, and then our quantities, which can always be updated. All we usually need to do, hit that reorder button, we get our purchase orders. So we've gotten a ton of great feedback from our clients on this. Super useful module. Foresight coming up with that prediction for us, enabling the creation of those transactions. So I always like to make that note on purchases here. We're trying to make your lives easier, generate these for you. And then looking at the actual production order, excuse me, purchase order itself, I'm getting ahead. Looking at the actual PO itself, I'll just do a quick overview of what this looks like so we can see our form. Up top, supplier details, all of their address and information like terms. Options for stocking first or invoicing first, your choice. As we scroll down, we see our order stages here. Whatever we choose to come first will influence this order. We do have that three-way match of ordering, receiving, and invoicing. At the bottom, we've got our actual order grid, costs and quantities, any additional costs here as well. So we love to store things like landed costs. If you pay it to the supplier, like freight, it can go in this section here. If you pay it to someone else, customs, tariffs, some of those things are relevant today. We can allocate those from a separate purchase order. We pay that to somebody else. We can link in that PO to this PO here. At the end of the day, when we ship out these goods, we calculate your cost of goods sold for you, sync it up to your accounting system if that's QBO or Xero. So really important that we capture these landed costs, gives us that more accurate COGS. When it comes to receiving, couple ways this can be done, quite a few actually. We do have a WMS app. If you'd like your people to be scanning in the warehouse barcodes, that can be done through our app. We also have 2 clicks to receive in this receiving section here. If you'd like to have maybe a manager who simply marks it as received in the system. Options to enter batch, serial, and expiration date information in receiving. This is what starts that traceability right from when we get those goods. If we're using something like a 3PL, this info syncs automatically from their system. We can connect that, configure it so you don't have to touch this. Looking at our invoicing, this is our trigger for this to get sent up to your accounting system, preventing some double entry there. You've already got the PO in SIN 7. Let's just sync it up to QBO or Xero. That invoice number and date are our trigger there. Any payments that happen, say you use bill.com in QBO, come right back to our system. So good options there for receiving and invoicing. We can do credit notes and stocking if you need to get a refund from your supplier, do some unstocking. We also have write-offs if you're forced to accept that inventory, internally waste it. Options here for attachments as well. That's going to be in all of our transactions. Always can attach things, sales, production, purchasing. So you've got those relevant for that transaction. All right, before we head over to do a brief overview of production, I'm going to take a look at our chat, see if we have any questions to answer. We sell made-to-order products. Is it possible to sync stock levels to our e-commerce platform based on the available quantity even before the manufacturing process begins? So we can do that, Hayden, for made-to-order products. We usually do that for things like bundles or kits, where we put in a bill of materials, we calculate the availability based on the availability of your components, say that this many can be made, sync that up to your e-commerce site. So if we're talking about things like virtual bundles, kits, things that are pretty straightforward, we can do that. Made to order products where we actually manufacture those. We usually don't calculate the availability for those if it's really our made to order products in that way. Customer gets to select, say we're making a couch. What's my fabric? What's my cushion? What's my embroidery options? Because they get to make those selections, we don't typically calculate that availability. We can talk a little bit more about your specific use case if you want to reach out, though. Question from James, can you have multiple line purchase orders and can each line have a different requested date? So we can have multiple line purchase orders, multiple SKUs on these POs, but there is one requested date overall for the PO. So usually we'll use something like line item comments to note those requested dates if we need something additional than that whole PO request date. Good questions there in the chat. I appreciate those. We'll head over to talk briefly about production. So I always say I could talk for like half an hour about production. We've got some great options here. I usually like to make it specific to each of our use cases. I'll show some of our options. We've got a more simple side, which is assembly. Very simply, what goes in, what comes out. This is great for things like bundles, whether they're pre-assembled or virtual, great for simple manufacturing as well. If we're coming off of something like Excel sheets or we're not really doing great tracking when it comes to manufacturing, this is a great sort of first way to get used to tracking stock and cost. Very simple on that side. We also do have what we call advanced manufacturing. So this is more of how does production happen? How many steps are we taking? How long should it take for capacity planning and scheduling? Quite a few more options there. We also have an app that can be used. So depending on your production needs, we can always evaluate those, make a recommendation, give you a tour of each module. I could just talk about them for a while. So I'll spare us today. If you'd like to get into a demo, have us speak specifically about your production workflow, absolutely, we would love to do that. Now we'll head over to sales. So ideally at this point, we've purchased in some raw materials or some finished goods. If necessary, we've done some production or assembly. We've used those up, spit out some finished goods. We'll now head over to sales to talk about shipping those out. Quite a few ways sales can happen here, right? We've got e-commerce integrations like Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Walmart. We've got maybe some B2B. We mentioned our B2B portal. We might want to do some manual orders. Come and fill out who's my customer, what are they ordering, or do some importing. We can read orders from a PDF. So if you'd like to throw in a PDF, have us translate it, we can do that. We also can import via CSV. We do have an open API. If you want to connect in with something that's not in our integration list, that can be built. We also do EDI, things like SPS Commerce and Crystal we hook in with. Now, when I say we do EDI, don't let me misconstrue myself there. We don't have an EDI van ourselves, so that isn't a one-to-one connection for EDI. We usually work through a middleware, someone like SPS, Crystal, Commerce Hub, True Commerce, some of those that help to manage the EDI transactions. We connect into them via API. So, variety of ways that these orders can get in. Ideally, at the end of the day, we want to see all of your orders within this one sales module. We give you comprehensive sales reporting, and then we route these orders to fulfillment as well. So, if we're thinking about sending these to a 3PL, maybe sending them to a ship station or a ship theory, we can do all of that. We do also have our own app, our WMS. If you'd like to, again, utilize scanning, that hooks in great with things like ShipStation to be able to print labels. So, quite a few options to get these orders in, quite a few options to get them out. At the end of the day, we want to make sure we have an all-encompassing view of your sales. That gives us some great reporting. It also drives that demand planning module that we mentioned. We can holistically see all of your sales per location. We can more accurately predict what you're going to need in the future. Going to take a brief look at this sale. When these orders come in from various integrations, API, whatever it may be, they get translated into this form. It's an exact copy. We don't recalculate tax, we don't recalculate price, anything like that. We get a copy. At the top, our customer information here. As we scroll down some of those order stages, ordering, pick, pack, and ship, and invoicing. At the bottom, our actual product, any additional costs here. So with things like pick, pack, and ship, that can happen via a 3PL. It can happen via our WMS app or through something like a ship station. Invoicing works the exact same as we saw with purchasing. Once I enter my date here and authorize, we sync that up to QBO. Again, we want to prevent some double entry there. We can consolidate orders as well. This usually makes our accounting teams pretty happy. If we don't want to see 1,000 orders individually in our QBO, we don't really care about the individual order volume. We can send it over as one order per day into QBO. So we get the revenue, the tax information, don't care about the customers, the individual order stuff. So great options there with sales, kind of the same spiel as production. We would love to evaluate all of your connections, your different workflows that you have to determine that they can work with our system. Since there are a variety of industries, workflows that we work with, we do a great eval to make sure that when things are getting set up, they'll be set up in the ways that you need them to be. Finishing out here with sales again, some options for attachments if necessary, some credit note, restocking options if we get things like refunds, returns, refunds, or exchanges. Before we head out of sales and finish out our last few minutes here with reporting, I am going to double check the chat, see if we've got some questions. Ooh, Iago said, if we need to print the labels of the product onto a third-party printer, can we control it? Can the tool manage different versions of the product and link it with the labels? Absolutely. Yeah, if we need to print product labels, those are customizable. So you get to choose what's on the labels, and then they can be printed through various printers, whether that's like a Zebra printer, typical printer, however you'd like to see those, we can format them differently. For sure. Hayden had the question of setting up to import paid orders or fully shipped sales. If we choose to import all orders, will the order status be updated when the order is marked as shipped in the marketplace? That is correct, Hayden. I kind of flew through that. Thanks everyone else for maybe trying to follow me as I read through that one. If you do fulfill in, say, something like a Shopify, maybe use Shopify's shipping app or a Shopify plugin. We kind of see two stages there then. If we have the order come in when it is authorized, you'd first see the order like this. It's been ordered, but it has not yet been fulfilled. Once that status gets updated in Shopify, we can bring in the fulfillment status to now say the order has been shipped. That's going to update our stock on hand. I always like to say Syn7's the kind of the guy in the background to calculate inventory. We're getting the order when it's open. We're getting the update when it's closed, using that to calculate availability. We're really just kind of hanging out, updating that info. So yeah, no problem there, Hayden. Good questions in the chat. Thank you for those. We'll go over to our reports here and finish out. We do have over 100 reports here separated out per module. Quite a bit of information we can pull here. Things like purchase cost analysis. What did we pay today versus 3 months ago? Quite a bit of production reports, cost analysis, wastage analysis, actual versus planned cycle times. Tons that we can report on there. And then quite a bit of sales reports. Sales by customer, sales rep, cost of goods sold, all of that beautiful stuff. We'll head into my favorite report here, sales profit summary. Shows quite a bit of information. I'd just like you to be able to get a look at what our reporting suite looks like. We are set up in pivot tables, so if you're familiar with those, usually pretty intuitive here. Matter of setting a date range at the top. All of our pivots then get loaded in. And I can now do some rearranging here as I please. We've got a ton of hidden fields that you can drag in if you'd like some additional options there. And then once I get this looking how I like, I can save it as a layout so I can come back to it very easily. Export this into Excel to do some work on it. We also can schedule these. So if you'd like to see a report in your inbox every Monday, or if there are stakeholders who don't even log into the system but need to see things like sales reports, we can automate those out to people's inboxes as well. All right, gorgeous. Thank you for sticking with me through this pretty quick demo here. If you would like to get a more customized demo to your business, your industry, feel free to reach out to us. There will be an email coming out with this webinar recording as well as a link to reach out to our team. So if you're interested in a more personalized demo, if you want to talk about those things like production or specific product workflows that we mentioned, feel free, please reach out to us. We can get you scheduled. Other than that, I will stay on for a couple minutes here just to answer some questions. I see we're at our 9:30 mark, so if you need to get going to other commitments, please feel free to do so. Thank you for the time today. Glad you can join in our webinar. We do run these every other Thursday as well as some Wednesday afternoons as well. So if some of your team members couldn't make it, they can view that recording that will get sent out, or you can join on another webinar as well. So appreciate the time. If you need to hop, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat here, see if we have any follow-up questions. Yago, it looks like if we sell to Amazon and rely on Amazon data like FBA, is there a way we can control if Amazon is sending us wrong data? So we do connect in with Amazon FBA. We would store FBA numbers in our system. We do have FBA stock takes that can happen daily of comparing stock in their warehouse to ours. Now, if they are sending the wrong data, not a ton that we can do there simply because we don't have control over Amazon's data. We pretty much take what they give us and say, all right, we trust you. We don't really have ways to calculate and see if that's incorrect. So we essentially take what Amazon gives us. If corrections are made in their system, those flow through to us as well. Amazon FBA really operates on its own. It doesn't need us to pass it orders or to manage its stock. So, it's kind of your choice. If you're just using FBA and not FBM, would you like to integrate that into our system, see that stock managed on our side as well? Or is it like we're just going to let Amazon do that on its own? Hayden asked, can data be exported out of SYN7 on a schedule to be imported into analytics software? Oh, so we do have CSV exports. Those tend to be like pretty manual, grab them as you need. If we need things like automated exports, that's usually when we would think about our API. So probably building an API connection and then triggering that to export information on a regular basis. We see that often with things like Power BI or for like exporting to visualization software. Yeah, good question, Hayden. Cool. And said, we'll set up a more customized demo with the team. Do we have pricing available? I do have pricing available. So we've got some general pricing if we would like to take a look at that. Now, this may have, some differences if we're including things like additional integrations. We can kind of talk about what our pricing variations include, but we do have some standard packages here that we can take a look at. Tends to be, let's take a look in our subscription section here. Standard, Pro, and Advanced are our packages here, starting at $349. That last package starting at $999. Usually depends on how many users we need, what our sales volume is, and how many integrations we have. There are some add-ons for things like that Foresight AI, advanced manufacturing, all of that good stuff. So this is where our team will work with you to determine what's the correct package, what integrations are needed. That's usually where I come in to do some analysis of your workflow, being part of the solutions team. So generalized pricing here will help you to figure that out though based on your use case. Ooh, last question here, and I've got to get hop into another meeting. How would we process shipments to Amazon FBA? Is this a manual transfer to a stock location? Currently, it is. So managing that would have to be a copied transfer in our system or purchase. You also need to create that shipment plan in Amazon. We used to have this automated, Amazon updated and broke it. So something on our minds. We know we don't want that to be manual, but it is something that we're working on developing. It's in our roadmap right now. Alrighty, that's about all the time that I have today. Thank you all for staying on a little extra for questions here. Keep an eye out for that follow-up email from my team. Really appreciate the time today. Hope you have a good rest of your morning. Hopefully we'll talk soon.